expecting that. I guess Vegas does know early in the week. The line came out. Georgia was a 14-point favorite heading there to Auburn. I was like, no way in hell is this game going to be close. I had Auburn a couple weeks ago. I had Georgia start the beginning of the season. I've seen both these teams in person, been in some Georgia practices, seen the struggles for Auburn on the offensive side of the football. Could they figure out the quarterback situation? Could they move the ball against Georgia's defense? And the big question for Georgia, what would Carson Beck look like on the road? What would this defense look like in their first true challenge away from Sanford Stadium, away from Athens, Georgia? And I guess if you're a fan of football, it didn't disappoint. I know there's a lot of fans out there saying, I told you so. Georgia ain't elite. There's a bunch of Georgia fans freaking out right now because they didn't steamroll Auburn by 2-3 touchdowns. I'll start with this. Is Georgia as good as they've been the past 2 years right now? No. Can they get to that point? Can they get to the point from 2021 to 2022 where they were clearly the best team in the country? There's no doubt in anyone's mind those two teams were going to go on to at least be in the conversation to win a national championship and the heavy favorite to win the national championship. Based on what we've seen for the first 4 games this season and based on what we saw in this game this afternoon, no, they're not the favorites at the moment. And that brings on another question that T-Bob and I will talk about most likely on Monday. Then who is the favorite? Because right now there's not a lot of teams blowing the doors off their competition week in and week out. This is what we're getting more times than not in college football this season. Close matchups. Games that we think are going to be blowouts end up being 4-quarter battles. And it's just the name of the game nowadays. I will tip my cap off to Auburn Tigers. Like, you were the underdogs. You could have made every excuse under the sun of why you would lose this football game. From, hey, it's the Georgia Bulldogs. It's the 2-time defending national champs. Hey, we don't really know who our starting quarterback is. Is it Payne Thorne? Is it Robbie Ashford? What's the rotation going to be? I was impressed. Hugh Freeze in year one and what he's been able to put together on that football field. I know it's only 3-2, but to go toe-to-toe, to be leading in this football game for the majority of the game, and still have a lot of question marks about what this offense is and who the quarterback's going to be, says a lot to the culture that he's already built there, says a lot to the belief of that football team. And he is the right coach, and they're going to win a lot of football games going forward. They play with a lot of energy. I know T-Bob likes to sleep on that stadium. Jordan-Hare is lively. It is one of the most lively places in the country. And especially when it's one of the biggest rivalry games, they're going to show up. They're going to be rambunctious. They're going to cause a lot of problems. And they did that. I mean, that stadium was electric from the very first kickoff to the very last snap. And they did their job. Auburn fans, you did your job creating an atmosphere which made it very difficult for Georgia to even get close to pulling away. And I mean, if any team had an opportunity to pull away, I mean, it was Auburn at times who, like, in my gut watching the game, was saying, oh my God, Auburn may pull away in this football game. Oh my gosh, is Auburn going to take an even more of a 2-score lead, a 14-point, 17-point? Like, that was going through my head. Not once did I feel like Georgia was a team that was going to pull away. It was Georgia just surviving and then finding a way to win the game when it was all said and done. Auburn was the aggressor. Auburn played a hell of a football game. Once again, man, I tip my hat off to you guys, the Auburn Tigers. You got a great coach. You got a good football team, and you have an opportunity to win a lot more games this season. Jerry in the chat says, UJ, way overrated. UJ, your run is over. I will disagree a little bit with that because you look at the schedule. Kentucky's going to be a great game next week. I think I'm going to be there in Athens for that one. So Kentucky, obviously, we talked about that on our earlier show, steamrolled Florida. I went back and just watched the coach's tape of that game during halftime of the Georgia game, and Florida wanted nothing to do on that defense side of the football. We're not going to talk about that, but that's going to be a challenge. You know, Florida, Missouri, Ole Miss right now, I believe, is up. Tennessee, Georgia Tech. So, you know, Georgia still should take care of business with that schedule going forward. But the way you played versus Auburn, yeah, like every game right now is going to be a challenge. Like, I don't think Georgia just should feel very confident that they're just going to go out there, roll out football, and just say, we're going to beat you up. They are not that football team this year. Kerry Platt says Carson Beck didn't play horrible, but man, That O-line gave him 8 years in the pocket. Carson Beck was really good. And I do want to hit on this part because I know there's a lot of people obviously dogging Bobo. There's a lot of people dogging Carson. And I thought Carson, I don't know if I would really blame the interception on him. I got to go watch the coach's tape when that's out. He anticipated a throw. It was one-on-one coverage, and Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint needs to be able to come back and win that battle to catch the football. You play receiver for a reason. He plays DB for a reason. You got to go get that football. That is your football. You know the route. The DB jumped it and wanted that football more than you did. I'm not putting that on Carson. I'm putting it on the receiver. And I thought the rest of the game, Carson looked pretty damn good. He was accurate. He was throwing with anticipation. And then in crunch time, the moment we were waiting for, and I talked about this at the beginning of the season, I wanted to at some point this season, early on, figure out, do I have a quarterback, if I'm Kirby Smart, do I have a quarterback I can trust in the fourth quarter? Do I have what Stetson Bennett has done over the past 2 seasons? Do I have that guy? Can Carson lead us down the field in that type of environment? And he did it. And I know a lot of people, because I just tweeted it, were saying, oh, it's Brock Bowers, it's Brock Bowers, it's Brock Bowers. And yeah, Brock Bowers is a stud. Brock Bowers should be up for the damn Heisman. 100%. But Carson Beck stood in there and made big-time throw after big-time throw after big-time throw to give Georgia an opportunity to win that football game. Not once watching the game did I feel like Carson Beck was scared, that the moment was too big for him, that I was nervous he was going to make a mistake. As a fan watching the game, every time Georgia got on the field and Carson Beck took the ball from the center, my thought was he's going to make a play. He's going to make a play. And yeah, the one rollout to the right, which was a little bit scary, and I thought Gary Danielson made a good point. Like, at some point during close games, you're going to have to make judgment calls of when to use your arm strength to push the envelope. And he chose that moment to do it, and he made the completion. But right now, if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm walking into that locker room. Am I a little bit disappointed? Maybe a little bit, maybe a tad bit. But I know right now, I got a dude at quarterback. I got a dude at quarterback that has been, I know has been extremely efficient this entire football season. It's not Caleb Williams. It's not Shadur Sanders. It's not Jaden Daniels. It's not Spencer Rattler. Maybe like those guys are putting up absurd numbers. I get it. But when you watch the tape, it is winning football, and then in crunch time versus South Carolina, and now in crunch time on the road in Auburn, hostile environment, he kept his composure the entire football game. The entire football game. So I think that is that to me, like, I walk away, Kirby Smart said, I walk away from that saying, I think we can win every single game, because if Carson has the football in his hands, he's going to give us an opportunity to drive down the field to score a touchdown. Farrell Wright in the chat said after that interception, he stepped up. He did step up in a big way. You know how many quarterbacks who are making their first start on the road in that stadium would throw an early interception and go to shit? Would go into the tank? Would let that compound itself? The one thing that worries me, and going back to this entire trusting of Kirby Smart trusting Carson Beck, and now Carson gaining a lot of that by the way he played in the football game, especially in the second half, was the end of the first half. When Georgia had over a minute to go in timeouts and did not push the envelope to drive down the field to attempt a field goal or a touchdown. Because that's practice. One that's giving your quarterback and your offense another opportunity to go put on tape how to run an effective 1-minute drive, to give those guys that confidence, to go into halftime up, for goodness sakes. After a first half where you didn't play well, you had an opportunity to take the lead going into halftime. And you ran the ball, then bled clock, and then decided to then pass it. What are we doing? I want to see, hey, we believe in Carson. And hopefully tonight was the moment where Kirby kind of goes back and says, you know what? When we got a minute to go in halftime, and Carson has the ball, and we got, we're at the 20, 25, now we're backed up inside the 10-yard line, but we got, 50 yards for a field goal, 40 yards for a field goal. Let's let Carson eat. Let's let Carson go out there and do his thing. So I think Carson, in a big way, gave his head coach and Bobo a lot of confidence going forward as a quarterback. Issues for Georgia in this game: defensive line. Defensive line. For those watching the game, it's been since 2018 since Georgia's given up over 200 yards rushing. I think it was versus LSU was a stat. 219 yards. Payne Thorne, 92 yards rushing. I saw this a couple weeks ago when I had Auburn's game. He's dynamic. I know we all think it's Payne Thorne the thrower, Robbie Ashford the runner. That's not the case. Payne Thorne is a hell of a runner. He can do everything at the quarterback position. Robbie's just faster. Robbie's just that next step of speed, but not Payne can still do the zone read. Payne can still do the RPOs. He can do the triple option, all that stuff that Hugh Freeze and Philip Montgomery want to execute. Payne Thorne can do that. And I thought he did a great job of managing that part of the offense. I thought obviously Robbie, when he got in there, really created a lot of confusion for Georgia. So I was disappointed for Georgia, the defensive line and that front seven. Something that Kirby's kind of hinted of, like, we don't have a first rounder. We don't have a Jalen Carter out there right now. Like, we don't have that. We're still searching, and maybe they won't find that. But they looked, and which is the goal of this offense when you add a quarterback run, they looked late. They were hesitant. They weren't flying to the football. There was missed tackles. But that's what this offense does. So, I want to get after Georgia a little bit, but you also have to give respect to Auburn and Hugh Freeze. This is an offense that, when they're rolling, can give defenses struggles. And not saying that, Georgia is not excused from giving up over 200 yards rushing. I'm just saying, let us give credit to where credit's due, too. Hugh Freeze came out with a great game plan. Auburn wanted to make a massive statement. This was their Super Bowl. And they came out there and played their asses off. Offensive line did a great job. Running backs did a great job. Quarterbacks did a great job. This was as good of an Auburn offense as we've seen this entire season. It's their 5th game of the season. It's a brand new offense, new faces, and they got better. Good job. They should use this game. As we talk about Carson Beck using this game to springboard the confidence of his football team and coaching staff. Auburn Tigers, it sucks you lost the football game, and it's amazing what this could have done for that fan base and that football team and for Hugh Freeze. But I still think you walk away as an Auburn fan saying, wow, that offense was kind of fun. Wow, our defense would play with some tenacity. Wow, our quarterbacks look the best they've looked at this entire season. Wow, Hugh Freeze can compete with Kirby Smart, with Nick Saban, with Lane Kiffin and Jimbo, and just go down the whole damn list. This guy can do it. He can do it. We got our guy. So, it sucks to lose a football game if you're Auburn. But I hate saying this, but you do walk away feeling a little bit more confidence. And you kind of look at the schedule, too. If I'm an Auburn Tiger and I say, you know what? Next week at LSU, maybe that's doable. Ole Miss doable. And, hey, Alabama, end of the season. Who knows? You got them in that stadium. And we know crazy things, just like today. Crazy things happen in that stadium. Brian Block in the chat says, Texas beats Georgia right now. I agree. We said this past week, we put out our snaps rankings, and Georgia or Texas was our number 1 football team. Texas is the most complete team in America right now. 100%. The most complete football team in America. And I had both those games side by side watching. Texas versus Kansas, obviously Georgia versus Auburn. And it sucked that Kansas was without their starting quarterback, massive advantage for Texas. But you can't tell me you watch Texas football this year and just say, wow, great defense, physical lines of scrimmage. Jonathan Brooks has been absolutely tremendous running the football. Quinn Ewers has been stellar throwing the football. You got tons of receivers. This is a complete football team. So, if you put Texas on the field with anyone right now, I would lean towards Texas winning that football game. No doubt in my mind. Tara White in the chat says, Bobo play calling is subpar. I feel like I got to remove myself from this conversation somewhat because, of course, I'm going to defend my boy a little bit. You put up 27 points. You had some dumb turnovers. Interception, unfortunately, a fumble. I think Bobo called a good game plan. It wasn't an A plus, but I wouldn't say it's a C. I'd kind of give it like a B grade, B minus, B minus. If anything, I would say I'm more disappointed in the defense and the offense in this game. I'm way more disappointed. If like everyone wants to continue to look at the offense for Georgia and blame Bobo or Carson, they're not scoring enough points or not this or that. Why is no one wanting to look at the defense at all? Like, why is everyone refusing to look at that side of the football? First half for South Carolina, Spencer Rattler went off. UAB put up 21 points. Auburn dominated the line of scrimmage. No one's bitching about the defense. Everyone just wants to point fingers at the offense. Call me an offense guy. Call me Bobo's guy. I'm just saying, you have to look at the entire football team. This was was a B minus performance offensively. I'd give it a C plus on the defensive side of the football. So watch the whole game. Watch the whole game. Sucker Ram in the chat says run defense not great. O-line is bipolar. I'm with you on that one. Run defense, like I talked about a couple minutes ago, this is a tough offense to go against with those running quarterbacks. There's just a lot of eye discipline, a lot of things that, like, I think next week Georgia will feel like, man, this is so, like, even with how good Kentucky ran the ball today versus Florida, they'll kind of sit back and say, okay, a traditional running game, I'll take that. Way better than having to read a quarterback and a running back and then a pitch guy. It's triple option. It was triple option football. That's difficult to do. So, yeah, they didn't play great, but it's a tough offense when they get rolling. Offensive line, yeah, this has been an offensive line. I talked to my boy Ben Jones, my center, last week. We kind of felt like watching UAB that this was kind of like, okay, the offense line's ready to kind of put that stake in the ground that this is a Joe Moore award-winning group, that they're going to be in contention for that. And I thought they were kind of up and down throughout this ball game today. Noisy environment, first game on the road. Working out some communication stuff. You can make all the excuses, but those guys definitely did not play as well as you would have liked them to play. That is 100% accurate there. Park, very convenient how Auburn players got hurt every time UJ caught momentum. Ain't that true? The worst one, this is what needs to happen. When you get caught on film, the SEC, the commissioner, Sankey, needs to suspend that player for a quarter. I'm not going to give you a whole half. It's not targeting. You need to get suspended for that. Clearly, he was standing there and all of a sudden just drops. Got some signal from someone on the sideline that, hey, it's your turn to be a European soccer player. Get your butt on the ground, and then he just somehow falls over. Suspend him for a quarter. I don't think the problem is that you're not going to be able to prove it. Maybe he was hurt. Come on, let's be real. We all know that was some pretty bad, not even good. Like, that was some pretty bad acting right there. And yes, very convenient somehow that Auburn players kept getting hit. Kerry Platt, honestly, Thor made some pretty good throws towards the end of that game. His receivers were not helping him out. When I had Auburn a couple weeks ago and talking with his coaching staff, I mean, that's a concern. They have two good receivers that they trust, but they're a little bit on the smaller side. Not tall guys, not guys that you can throw over the middle. More speedy, quick gadget receivers. They're looking for some of their bigger receivers to step up. They have not seen that to start the season. Obviously, they struggled in a big way last week. I thought Payne Thorne struggled mightily on the road last week versus A&M. He did look a lot more comfortable, and I thought getting him running. I was the type of quarterback, I'm not as fast as those guys, but anytime I got running the football and got hit a couple times, I felt like the juices were flowing. I felt in rhythm with the football game, and I thought Payne Thorne, once he's got running and using his legs, then all of a sudden the pass game started to come out in a big way for him. Not a big way, but a pretty good way. I will say this, though. I'm still concerned about Georgia's secondary. Still concerned about Georgia's secondary. Concerned about Georgia's defense in general. Just there are some holes. And Kirby tried to warn Georgia fans about it. That we were putting this defense of all the guys returning on this pedestal, but there's some glaring holes that need some answers still to this day. But they got the win. At the end of the day, they got the win. Does Luke Smith, does UJ have any chance? UJ have any chance of a third title Our boys have looked so shaky. I would say yes. There's still 100% there's a chance. There are not a lot of elite football teams out there. There's just not. This is a goofy year, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. A lot of people wish this would have been the year that we had a 12-team playoff. It would have been a great year. I don't know who's great. I don't know who would win. Would it be Texas? Would it be Georgia? LSU? I don't know what the score is right now, but they were struggling a little bit versus Ole Miss. Michigan, they dominated today, but they've kind of been in hibernation to start the season off. Part of it's to do with their schedule as well. USC defensively, we talked about on our show earlier today. Make sure you go check out that recap. USC versus Colorado. And by the way, speaking of watching the recap, if you're in this chat right now, go hit the subscribe, hit that like button. Trying to get to 6K by next week, so we appreciate your support. So yeah, there's 100% an opportunity. 100%. You got a good defense. You have an offense that got some legs there in the second half. You got a quarterback now with a lot of confidence. Ladd McConkey, he's still not 100%. There's no way Ladd's 100% because he rarely played, but when he was in there, he made a big play. Third down, the ball was going to Ladd Brock. But I want to get the snap count of Ladd McConkey because I guarantee you was probably 30, 40% of the time he was on the field. So you bring him back healthy, I think that accelerates where this offense is going forward as well. All right, well that's gonna be it for now. I'm gonna go watch some more football. You go put the kiddos down, watch this LSU Ole Miss game, a little Duke versus Notre Dame later tonight, maybe a little South Carolina, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Alabama. A lot to continue to watch tonight. T-Bob and I will be back tomorrow morning. We'll do an early show. We'll get it out sometime between 9:30, 10 a.m. So make sure you stay on the lookout for that. We'll be breaking down all the big-time games from today. Once again, if you missed our instant reaction from earlier, we did a pretty in-depth breakdown of the Colorado versus USC game. So make sure you go check that out. We appreciate you guys, and we will see you again tomorrow for a full weekend recap. Have a great night.